Core Stories, Ordinary Marines, Extraordinary Lives.
Everybody, welcome to Core Stories Innovators, and we have a very special podcast for you this month. I had the pleasure of going over to Tidewater Wooden Boat Workshop here in Norfolk. Well, I'm not in Norfolk, but I'm in Hampton Roads. To actually see this facility, it's not that often that I actually get to meet my podcast interviewees in their element, but I did this time. And check my Instagram and check LinkedIn, and you'll see pictures from it because they're amazing. Check Core Stories Facebook page, you'll see beautiful pictures of this place. But basically, this is like the perfect Core Stories innovation. Retired Marine Colonel, Infantry Colonel Tom Brandl founded and runs an organization for disenfranchised children in Hampton Roads to teach them to build wooden boats. I'm talking real wooden boats, real boats that you sail on the rivers. And in just 5 years, he's had over 700 children come through the program. And it's a weeks and weeks long program. And I was able to observe some of the children, and they were so engaged and so enjoying it. So enjoy the podcast. The setting is amazing because it's at his place and you can see all the tools and goings on behind him. And I'll catch you on the backside. Thanks.
It is my great honor to have you here. I have been looking forward to interviewing you for a while because I think you're doing something so incredibly innovative. And so without further ado, first tell us all about the Tidewater Wooden Boat Workshop, and then give us a little bit about your background because it overlaps with mine. And I'm just thrilled to have you here today.
Okay, well, Tidewater Wooden Boat Workshop is a nonprofit it's a youth educational nonprofit that teaches math, science, and life skills to disadvantaged youth in the Hampton Roads area. And we do that through the building of wooden boats and other nautical activities. And when I say other nautical activities, things such as rowing, sailing, environmental science projects that we do along the shoreline while the kids are rowing and sailing the boats. And we're not talking model boats, although we do build model boats, and we have been because of COVID, but we build primarily 12 and 14 foot boats that the kids then get to take out on the local waters and use the boats that they built with their own hands.
So the thing is, to me, that this is so fascinating because for thousands of years, children have been learning to build boats. And outside of the US, in other places around the world, it is still a skill most children in some environments learn. But it is very, very unusual that it's done here. And perhaps I'm showing my age, but I remember when we had woodshop in high school and actually middle school, and I learned skills there that I use to this day. I mean, and I know that my son did not learn those in school, even though he went to a very fancy school in Virginia Beach. And he learned them from me. And I learned them from someone like you. And so I need to know, how did an infantry senior Marine officer wind up here? Wind up at this fabulous facility that I had the great honor of visiting last week. Thank you so much for the invite. And I was blown away. I was blown away by the order of it, the complexity of it, the peace in the kids who were there working and learning. It was an amazing experience for me. So how did we come to this?
Well, it actually started for me in junior high school. In ninth grade, I took a woodshop class for the first time, and I think that's where the first love of working with my hands with wood was instilled in me. And then eventually, fast forward to my time in the Marine Corps, I pretty much have been a self-taught woodworker my entire adult life. I loved working with the tools, building bookshelves and little bit furniture and crafty stuff throughout my Marine Corps career. But then when I retired, I was given a gift certificate by the guys that worked with me to attend the Wooden Boat School up in Maine. It's associated with Wooden Boat Magazine. It's a school where you can take 1 and 2 week courses learning how to build wooden boats. I've always loved boats. I'm a Naval Academy grad, so I learned how to sail at the Naval Academy. I owned a sailboat during my time at Camp Lejeune back in the late 80s, although I was deployed so much I didn't get to sail the boat that much. However, I always had a love of boats and woodworking. So I eventually used that gift certificate to attend the Wooden Boat School in 2011. And I tell everybody this, that was a life-changing experience for me. I just loved so much. It was an amazing experience of learning new ways of making something beautiful out of wood. And I came home after taking the 2 week course up there. The course was Fundamentals of Boat Building. And I came home and immediately started building a boat in my garage. And then I went back the following summer, took another 2 week course, and started hearing about these youth boat building programs. At the time, there were probably 60 or more youth boat building programs across the country. So I wanted to volunteer at one of those, and I figured there had to be one here in the Tidewater area. And I came back and started searching around, only to discover that there was no youth boat building program in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. So I started one in 2014. A gentleman that I was introduced to had been building wooden boats here for 30, 40 years. And he and I teamed up and we incorporated Tidewater Wooden Boat Workshop, and then started our programming in the summer of 2015. Our first program was, we had 15 kids and we built 4 12-foot rowboats in 7 weeks, and about killed us. We swore we'd never do that again, but we have. In even less time, we've been building boats, but it was a marvelous experience, and it just has taken off from there. But that's how I got into it, was basically a gift certificate, a retirement gift from the other folks that worked with me as I was retiring from the Marine Corps. I was stationed down here in the Tidewater area at what was then Joint Forces Command.
I would say that whomever it was who selected that gift, they knew you pretty well. They were able to tap into something that they saw. I love that.
You said something interesting earlier about there not being a lot of programs like this, but actually there are. As I already said, there at the time when I was looking for a place to volunteer here, there were over 60 youth boat building programs of some sort across the country. We just didn't have one here in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area.
Now, see, here we are with the largest naval base in the world. It's incongruent if
it is. That in the maritime history, you've got a huge ship repair, shipbuilding industry here in this area. So it just was inconceivable to me that we didn't have a youth boat building program. So now we do.
I love it. I completely love it. And leave it to a Marine officer to launch it. I love it. I completely love it. But you had cited statistics to me of the number of children you have had come through your program, and it was really amazing. Tell us about that.
Sure. We have, well, first of all, a little bit about our programs. We do after-school programs where kids will sign up, and we are, the kids we serve are ages 12 through 18, although we have had kids a little younger and a little older. But we do an after-school program that's a semester long. We do a fall semester and then a winter spring semester. and the kids, each participant will come 1 or 2 days a week for 2 hours after school, and we work on building boats. We also have been having homeschool groups that come during the school day. It helps us to maximize the shop time. We generally will have upwards of anywhere from 10 to 15 kids in our shop working on boats. We've had as many as 5 boats under construction here in the shop at any one time. And of course we want to do that safely. And so usually the most we'll have are 15 kids in the shop building boats, but we have to space them out during the week. And so that's the after school program. But then I said, you know what, during the day, we've still got capacity to take more kids. Well, fortunately, the homeschool groups in the area have discovered us. And for the last 4 years, we've had homeschoolers that come during the mornings also. So this way we can increase the number of kids that get to avail themselves to our unique programs here. So we will do that. And then in the summertime, we'll do summer camps, 1 week summer camps, in some cases 2 week summer camps, where the kids will come in and get the experience of working here at the shop. It also helps us to recruit kids for the semester long after school programs later on by doing those summer camps. So since the summer of 2015, we've had over 700 young men and women participate in one of our programs, whether it be our after school or our home school or our summer camps.
I love that. I completely love that. That's extraordinary. That's less than 6 years. That's just 5 years. That's 120 some odd kids a year. That's extraordinary. Especially, like you say, when it isn't something that they come in for a few days. They're there for weeks and weeks working on one project.
Yep.
I think it's wonderful. And the other thing that I was surprised at when I visited your facility was sort of the temperament of the students. You know, I think of this as being something sort of stressful because you are working with power tools, you're working with intricate tools, you're doing intricate work. A lot of adults would struggle to learn how to do this, much less children. And yet they seemed for about, I was there about 45 minutes sort of observing from a distance, these students there, and they seemed completely at ease and engaged. And that's a wonderful learning observation I experienced. And I wondered sort of how your leadership experience as a Marine came into sort of the teaching aspect of this.
And that's a very good question, I think. You know, as a Marine officer, you are a teacher. You're training your Marines to do the jobs that they need to do. You're supervising that. So it's no different than the same type of instruction and teaching that I did as a Marine infantry officer. You're teaching these kids to use and do things, use tools that they're unfamiliar with. And so it plays right into it. Plus I've never run a nonprofit in my life, obviously. And so that was a steep learning curve, is everything I needed to learn to run a business. Of course, I was able to draw on all my experiences from being in the Marine Corps. I mean, again, that's leadership. We have a large number of volunteers that want to help with the kids. And again, that's all part of leadership that you have to exercise. And I'd like to say that we have probably the most loyal volunteers I could ever hope for that come here to the shop to work with our young men and women. We couldn't do it without them. We have a very small staff. There's only 4 of us on the staff, but we have usually on average between 20 and 30 steady volunteers In fact, I have to schedule them because they always want to be here, a lot of them. And you can't have too many volunteers, but we always try to have at least one volunteer for every 2 or 3 kids that we have in the shop. Again, it's the safety aspect of it. You brought up the tools, Meriwether, and that's something that's very interesting because the kids are using tools such as bandsaws and hand saws and hand planes and disc sanders and table saws, but no child is on those tools without an adult there to supervise and help them. And they're all trained before they have to use them, and the safety aspects of it. That's the number one thing we stress here is safety. And so without the wonderful volunteers that I have coming to the shop to help us out, we couldn't do this program.
Oh, that's a very important fact. But I sort of assumed that because safety is so important in the Marine Corps. Yes. But also you say, well, I've never led a business before, but the Marine Corps is sort of a lean organization, fiscally speaking, and definitely under a microscope as far budgetarily. And so I would imagine that leading a battalion of Marines would have some great skill enhancement for this. The numbers may not be the same, but certainly I would say that there had to be some business aspects of leadership in the Marine Corps that you have been able to capitalize on here. No? Yes?
Oh, absolutely. And because we are a small staff, many of us have multiple responsibilities and jobs that we have to do. And I would say being able to keep track of everything that needs to take place to run a nonprofit is I've been able to draw on my Marine Corps experiences to be able to do that. One aspect of a nonprofit that wasn't something that I had to do in the Marine Corps is fundraising.
Oh, no, I guess that's right.
But I will say this, a lot of it is personal relationships and telling people about our programs. And I was on recruiting duty as a young captain, that a lot of the things I learned there of engaging the public and talking about the Marine Corps to parents and families and large groups, I just draw on that here to the same thing to sell our programs to both donors and to parents whose kids I want to get involved in our program. So that's another aspect of my Marine Corps experience that has helped out immensely here in starting Tidewater Wooden Boat Workshop.
So that's the thing, is that the reason that I launched this podcast is you are like the quintessential innovative Marine. This is exactly what I wanted to highlight about the Marine Corps community, is that there are people in the Marine Corps community who are really solving an old problem a new way. And in this case, you're solving the problem of, first of all, you're occupying a passion. That's a big deal. A lot of people can't identify their passion, and once they do, they don't know how to occupy it. The other thing, though, is you're helping the community. See, that's one thing I think that Marines in general care very much about their community. I remember when I was writing stories for 125 for John Monahan, who's behind your camera somewhere there, he would give me license to write about a Marine who had done something extraordinary. And I can remember there was a Marine attached to 125, or maybe it was out of Worcester, maybe it was a headquarters. But anyway, there's a reservist Marine, and he was a cop in Fitchburg. And on Christmas Day, a 3-month-old baby was choking. And he came to the call, and he gave CPR to a 3-month-old baby and saved that baby's life. I mean, that's a little tiny baby. I mean, even a skilled medic would struggle with the baby given CPR to. But anyway, I remember that. I remember how ordinary Marines were doing exceptional things every day. That's where I learned that season of my writing. And that was writing for Associated, as a correspondent for Associated Press newspapers at the time. But so this kind of thing just kind of like brings all my into alignment, all of my logics, all my sensibilities, all that's right in the world to me. So I really want to applaud how you have brought this together, but I also want to say that other Marines who see this video, who hear this podcast, this is a great inspiration for them, because there are a lot of Marines coming up to retirement or coming up to a season when they're going to leave the Marine Corps, and they want to do something that has value to them and to their community. This is just like brilliant example. Now, let me ask you, before we get to where this is going, where you would like to see this go, let me ask you, what has been the hardest part about this? The hardest part about developing this organization and keeping it going?
I think the hardest part has been just a steep learning curve for me on some of the business aspects of it, the running a payroll, the books, keeping the books, and the woodworking part of it was easy. I learned what I needed to build a boat at the wooden boat school, and I had initially a good partner who knew how to build boats to help with that. The first part that was very difficult for us was finding a place to set up our shop. And we were very fortunate to have this shop space that we're in donated to us here in Norfolk by the Norfolk Redevelopment and Housing Authority. So that took that challenge off the table early on. And that probably was our hardest part. The other difficult part of it right now for us, another challenge that we've had is recruiting the kids for our programs. Although we get plenty of kids, the challenge is, how do they get here? Because we don't do the transportation side of things. The kids have to have their own way of getting here. Now, the way we've gotten around that is by partnering with other youth nonprofits in the area who have the means to transport the kids to our shop. The other thing we've done is we've actually started to partner with some of the local middle schools and high schools, to where we can take, I call it the traveling road show. We can take our tools and the materials of the boat, and we've actually built boats in local high schools over the past few years. So that's usually the challenge, though, is getting the kids to the shop or the shop to the kids. But we've gotten around that, and so that's basically our biggest challenge that we're finding right now.
What's the best part of all of this? What has been the absolute best part of this project?
I always like to say that our three favorite words that we love to hear are, "I did this." And what I mean by that is, and I'll tell you a story, if I may, of a young lady we had here named Sanaya. And she entered our program. She was only 11, and our age groups are 12 to 18. Her mom was here in the shop signing up her older brother. And I looked at her while her mom was filling out the paperwork for her brother. And I asked her, "How come you're not signing up?" And she looked at me and she said, "I'm too young." And I said, "Well, how old are you?" And she said, "I'm 11. And I could just see in her eyes, she really wanted to participate. And I said to her, "I'll bet you really want to do this, don't you?" And she looked at me and very emphatically said, "Yes." Mom, I told her, "Mom, go ahead and sign her up." And she ended up being one of the best young boat builders we had at 11 years old. But the first time she had done something that she was really, really proud of was very early in the program. She was the first child that we taught to sew the leather, protective leather on an oar. The leather protects the wood of the oar from the oarlock. And she was the first one to learn how to do that. And she did it on her own. And when her mother came to pick her and her brother up at the end of the session, she went running in the back where we store our oars, and she grabbed her oar and she brought it out to her mother, and she said, "Mommy, look, I did this."
I love
And
it.
she said it with such pride. And whenever I hear those words, you can tell you really got to that child. You really helped them out, him or her out, because the self-confidence that they get. We talk about life skills that we, more so than math and science, is the life skills that we give them. And a lot of that is self-confidence, it's teamwork, it's communication skills, it's critical thinking, all the types of skills that employers are really looking for in their employees.
Now tell me, where are you going from here? I mean, you've really been through, I say that as if this were normal times and you were adhering to your normal 5-year plan, but these are not normal times, but you have really adapted to it. I could see when I was there the other day that you have great adaptation for the COVID circumstances of education. So taking that into consideration, what is the plan from here on out, really?
Well, we want to continue to expand our programming. As I said earlier, the kids get to row and sail the boats that they work on, that they build. And I'd like to expand our on-water portion of what we do. Right now, the kids come to the shop and they build the boats, and then at the very end of the semester, for the last session that they're here, we're not in the shop, we're at the waterfront, and they're rowing or sailing the boat. But they only get an opportunity to do that last week of the program. I'd like to expand to where we have a complete semester of all we do with some of the kids is they're out on the water, learning how to row, learning how to sail. They spend most of their time on the water. So I want to expand that aspect of our program. I also want to begin, and we kind of tested it out last year and had a good start to it, but then COVID kind of interrupted it, but a pre-apprentice program where for some of our older kids, they come here and they're learning the hard job skills of working with tools and math and science that are the ones that are not planning to go on to college, but these are skills that in our area here with the ship repair industry, they'd be apt to get a job here with some of the ship repair companies that are in the area. So we want to do a pre-apprentice program where they come to the shop and they're actually getting paid a stipend as part of their learning process.
I live in Portsmouth, and my family has lived here a long time, over 150 years, I guess. Many people in Portsmouth, anyway, that's sort of the one industry that the sort of the waterlocked isolation of Portsmouth has allowed, and that is ship industry work. There is a tremendous number of dry docks. We have a lot of ships, naval ships, that are repaired by big companies, but there are, there's dozens of these one dry dock ship repair companies up and down that south branch of the Elizabeth. And they employ tens of thousands of people. And it pays well. It's a long, you can work there for many years and expand. I mean, I'm not even talking about the shipyard itself, the shipyard, Norfolk Naval Shipyard, which of course is in Portsmouth. It's a Jeopardy question. But anyway, the point is that I could see this. I could see this as being something, but I also wondered, does the school system embrace, and it must, but I would imagine that the school system would be interested in your growth as well, the public school systems.
Give
Go
me a second.
ahead.
Is it back?
Yes.
We are? Okay. Yeah, the school systems are. We've had some good relationships with some of the local high schools and middle schools. So they see the value in what we're doing to reinforce the things that they're learning in school, as well as to give them an opportunity to do things that the schools don't offer anymore, such as shop classes. I think in a lot of the school systems around here, in order to be able to do woodworking, wood shop, you have to go to the VOTEC. Whereas when I was in high school, I think every high school and junior high school had a wood shop class for kids to take if they wanted to. So we do have good relationships. We were making some great inroads. However, again, COVID last year, when we had to shut down our programs and the schools were closed, that kind of interrupted the great relationship we were starting to form some of the school systems around here. So we're hoping as we get beyond the pandemic here that we can re-engage and continue where we left off.
I love this. I love it. But I really want to tell a quick little story to emphasize the tangible and timelessness of it. And that is that my son now he works for Leidos, which is an arm of Lockheed Martin. And he goes around and he switches out the computer systems for the air traffic controllers at the radar stations. I didn't even know what a radar station was. Super secret spy spots, didn't even know they existed. But anyway, when he went to the interview, the guy said, you have a great education with your computer science degree. You have a lot of experience. Well, the programs you're working on, you have great security background, etc. But he said, are you mechanically inclined? And are you expecting that kind of question in the 21st century? And my son said to him, I changed the serpentine belt on my car last weekend. And the guy said, yeah. So what I'm trying to emphasize is that these skills, they really do come in handy. Aside from whatever learning you may have that is of a technical nature or of a social science nature or whatever, these kinds of skills will aid your life in surprising ways.
Sure.
Truly. So that's why I am so honored and thrilled to be talking to you today. And again, your beautiful shop right there. Now, when I was there, I took a lot of pictures. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and post them to my Instagram and up to LinkedIn to sort of give a precursor to the podcast. But I am, again, completely honored. And so if somebody wanted to be in touch with you about their student, or if a Marine wanted to be in touch with you about sort of mentoring or leadership or learning more about doing something like this, what's the best way they could contact you?
They can go to our website and contact us via our website. And that is twbw.org. TWBW for Tidewater Wooden Boat Workshop, but just twbw.org. And there's a contact form there. Send me an email via the website. And we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for kids to join our program.
Great.
And so any kind of support we can get is wonderful.
Great. Thank you. And is there's a donation link there, I'm assuming?
The only other thing for where we want to go in the future is we're trying to get a little bit more high tech to where we want to use 3D printing, a CNC machine to get more of the computer interface with designing and building things. So that's someplace else we want to head towards the future, because the kids obviously they want to use computers. They want to learn how to do that. So that's the one thing that another area we're going to launch into in the future.
Great. All right, Tom, it's been a pleasure, and I thank you so very much.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to tell the story of Tidewater Wooden Boat Workshop to your audience. Thank you so much. All right, Meriwether, thank you.
How amazing is this organization, and how brilliant is Tom Brandl for struggling through the difficulties and the muck and the mire of running a nonprofit just so that he can continue to engage his passion and help others. Total Marine Corps ethos there. I love it so much. Anyway, if you would like to support the organization, go ahead and hit their website. But also, if you're a Marine and you are trying to figure out how to launch your own nonprofit, if you're trying to figure out how to get a passion you have off the ground in an organized way, reach out to Tom. He's open to helping others and mentoring. Anyway, have a great day, and please hit subscribe. We just have a few dozen subscribers, but we have a lot of viewers. So if you could just hit subscribe, we'd be grateful. Thank you so much, and Semper Fidelis.
Core Stories, Ordinary Marines, Extraordinary Lives.